Welcome back, everybody. This is a very, very special video. Yes, it's true. We've made it to 10,000 subscribers. And so what are we going to do? We're going to draw. And even better than that, we're going to talk about drawing while I draw. Oh, yeah. Can't think of a better way of starting out this video than with beauty shots of these pencils. This is my color pencils that I'm going to be using. These are Prismacolor erasable color pencils. That's right. They're awesome to draw with, and you can make corrections unlike other Prismacolor pencils. This is my Canson Universal Sketch Pad, which I use. It's my favorite now, and I use it all the time. And so let's get right into this. This is going to be the first sketch I think I've done for you all where I do it real time. There's no time lapse, there's no sped up anything. And I want to show you how I sketch whenever I'm out on location. I'm recording this in the evening, but I'm going to do this just as I would any sketch that I happen to be out in the field doing. And you'll notice that as I go along, I'm starting out, like I always say, with very simple shapes. I use a lot of angles. If I can draw something with a straight line or a slightly curved line rather than noodling it, I will do that every time. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get the feeling of what's there. And I picked this one because there's a lot of scrub brush here, you know, down in the foreground and up near the arch there. And, you know, when I first started sketching on location, I would get lost in that detail. And what I'm going to try and show you is you're looking for patterns of light and dark, and you're going to try and tie those together by creating shapes that are pleasing in a drawing, and you're not a slave to what's in front of you. I can't tell you, and I don't know how many of you are like this, but when I used to get out there, I would stare into the rocks, and I would try and get those rocks exactly the way they were in front of me, rather than just getting down the feeling or the general impression of the area. We need to remember that nobody cares what the exact shape of those rocks are. And let me tell you, you know, if you're painting mountains or the Grand Canyon, or if you're drawing as well, you're going to fail. You're going to set yourself up for failure if you are getting lost in those details. So what I would encourage you to do, besides getting outside or sitting down and drawing every day, is to try and find that shorthand with a pencil that works for you. The more you sit and do sketches and drawings, the more you're going to be able to figure out, okay, this is kind of my calligraphy for when I'm doing bushes or trees or rocks or clouds. And really, we don't have the full luxury of a big paint palette in front of us. All we have are our tones. If you're looking to do a drawing of something like this, let's say in 10 minutes or half an hour, you need to break things down into very generalized shapes to begin with. See how I'm putting all these shrubs in kind of at the same time. And then I'll be able to go back in there and break those shapes up if I need to, but it will start out by looking like a cohesive puzzle. And so I'm not exactly sure why I put in those arrows there, but oh, I know what it was. The reason that I put those arrows in was so that I could show you how I put the clouds in to make your eye keep from going off of the edge of the paper. I'm not sure why I put that second one in, but anyways, so right now all I'm doing is I'm feeling out those puzzle piece shapes so that they all fit in together with each other, and I can refine it later on. But right now all I'm looking to do is to get that composition the way that I want it. And a good composition to me is defined as unequal distribution of size and shape. And that should be our goal with every drawing or painting that we do. And what I'm doing here is arranging the bushes and the arch shapes so that they're pleasing and asymmetrical on the paper. And I'd suggest taking all those little shrubs and bushes that you see down there and tying them into a larger shape rather than trying to put in all these little bushes, because it's not going to make any difference, first of all, and it's not going to read in a pleasing way. So I really want to stress for you to get better drawings. Try and tie things in together, even though they may not be just like that where they're in front of you. See how you can weight things as bigger pieces, and you can always go in and add details as you're going. But to start out with, try and connect things that maybe are not connected, but make sense to connect. Does that make sense? So now that I have my overall composition here, I'm going to go in and add a little bit of tone into that arch because I know that it's going to need it, and I can now weight everything else off of that rock pattern that's there and continue to add in some simplified rock patterns in there. And I put them in very lightly at first. And as I put in the general rock shapes, I'll add in some shadow patterns so that it reads like it's in the light. And really now it's a matter of refining the values, the tones, so that you put your darkest darks where you want your eye to go. And obviously that would be in the shadow areas on the underside of the arch here. And everything else is going to be secondary to that. So that will be the darkest by far. You don't need to put a whole lot of detail in there. Just remember that your eye is going to fill in a lot of this. You can trust that as you put in these different shapes and bring them together, they're going to read as a cohesive unit. It's going to happen. There's no way that you can't. And the more that you do it, the easier it'll be for you. So putting in some of those cracks, not very many of them. I'm just putting in a few of the cracks that help to make that Johnson's arch. If those weren't in there, it could read just like any arch, I suppose. But it helps. And of course, my hand is smeared. If you're not a lefty, I don't suggest starting. Oh boy. I do want to put a challenge out to you though. Take a sketch pad with you wherever you go. If you've got 5 minutes, you can bring it out and do a nice little drawing. And eventually you'll get like me, and I miss it if I don't have it. Trying to square things up a little bit more than they were. All right, so now that we've got our general shapes in here, now we can go in and start breaking down other smaller shapes that are in the shapes, the big shapes that we have. If you're drawing, let's say, these shrubs, you need to define where the top edges of the shrubs are, just very simply like I'm doing. And your eye will fill a lot of that in. And you need to make sure that when you get towards the bottom of the shrubs, it's always darker. The shadows are always towards the bottom of those shrubs. If you do that, you'll easily fool the eye, and it will immediately know what those are. So just adding a little bit of definition in the rocks so it doesn't look like a big marshmallow. But getting back to having a drawing pack with you, I'm going to do a video of my outdoor sketch pack that I keep with me all the time. It'll help give you ideas on what you need in it. So as you're putting things in initially, know that you don't have to put them in as dark as they're going to be. I guess what I like to do is just try and build things up as I go. I get that darkest dark in there, and then I'm able to gauge everything else off of that. So if you do that, then you know how dark the shrubs can be without being too overpowering. Continue to work in some extra details. Refine shapes so that they're more pleasing. If you need to, don't be afraid to go in and erase. I haven't erased anything yet other than smudging, but I do it all the time when I'm out drawing or painting. If I don't like something, I'll wipe it off, or I'll erase it out and I'll try it again. And occasionally it doesn't work, and you abandon it and you move on. But the more you do this, the more times you'll be successful, or you'll get home and you'll think you were successful, and you look at it and you think, how did that happen from the time that I finished it, which it was successful, until I got home and it's not successful? What happened? So don't worry about it. Your impressions out in the field are going to be a little bit misleading when you're doing a piece of art and you're doing it quickly. I can't tell you the number of times I got home and I thought I had a decent painting, and I looked at it. I never look at them when I get home. I wait until the morning, and then when I look at it, I think, wow, who let the messy monkeys in? Because it sure looked better than that whenever I thought I had finished it. But and sometimes ones that you think don't work at all, you get them home and you'll be really pleasantly surprised, and there's just a little touch-up or two that you need to do in order to get it all to tie together. And waiting overnight to look at your painting or your drawing when you get home is a real nice way of giving your eye a break and having it be fresh in the morning. Because there's nothing better than having a fresh eye. And this is some of my shorthand whenever I'm doing shrubs. Lots of squiggly lines in the direction that the growth is. That's really, as long as you're consistent throughout the drawing for what your style is, it's pretty easy to tell what's going on there. Now, when I got out of school, just a little history, I got hired on at an advertising agency as a storyboard artist. And so whenever they would have commercials to do, they'd have me do storyboards for it. And so this was kind of my style for my underdrawings that I would do for the storyboards. And maybe if you know that, you can kind of see, yeah, okay, I can see how that would be a storyboard. A lot of times storyboards now, I guess all movies are storyboarded out. But this was very popular at the time. And, there weren't computers, and you couldn't do all that. It all had to be free-handed. I guess I'm bringing this up just to tell you how I developed my style. It took many years for me to feel confident to be able to do this. And it's something that you can easily develop, but you have to put in the hours, and you have to go outside and practice. I'm adding what I call texture dots. It just makes everything look like there's a little more detail than there is. I love putting those things in. It's a habit that I got into along the way, and it's seldom that I do a drawing that I don't put those little periods all over the drawing. I try not to overdo it, but it does help to give the feeling of rocks or grunginess, and that helps whenever you're conveying something like this in a very quick sketch. Like I said, it's just a shorthand, and the more you draw, the more you'll develop a shorthand for yourself. Everybody has that innate style. It's just looking to be developed and get set free. As I'm drawing this, I'm looking at it and I'm realizing I haven't really talked about the pressure of the pencil. When I'm drawing, generally I'll draw lighter, and as I decide what I want the shapes to be, for the large shapes, I'll go in and I'll put a heavier outline around those. You can see what I did around the arch there. There's a heavy outline there. And as I'm adding in these bushes, you can see that I'm starting to build up the density of the line, the weight of the line. And that line weight can really help to give you a feeling of 3D in your drawing. So generally things that are closer to you will have a heavier line weight. You know, they'll just be darker in the outline, and things that are farther away will have a lighter outline, right? Makes sense. But sometimes, you know, when I'm trying to define an overall shape, like with this arch, I will give myself a nice heavy outline around the top of it so that it really pops off the page and it reads just like I want it to. Just a light smudging helps to soften everything up a little bit. And I'll be erasing out the clouds that I have up there, and I wasn't real happy with the shape. So I will reapply those. Now, as I'm drawing this, I'm constantly looking, because when you get to this point, everything influences everything else. And so you can't just look at the little area that you're putting in. Keep one eye on what you're doing and another eye on how it's affecting everything else in the drawing. As I get away from that arch, I am putting in some detail on the sandstone, but it's not nearly as dark and there's not a whole lot of it. You know, I just put in a few pieces to help define the shape and the irregularities of it. There we go, I cleaned that off. So let's clean up the edges. Let's get a nice square edge here. I do carry a little T-square with me whenever I'm out in the field, so that just for this exact purpose. It's just what I'm used to doing. So I didn't put all that little scrubby stuff down in the lower right hand side. I left that open. You need a place in every drawing, you need a place where your eye can breathe, where it can relax. You know, you don't have something in every tiny little corner, and your drawing will read much better if you do that. And so that's why I left that area down there. Couple little texture dots. Firm up that shrub line there. I think if I darken it up, it's going to read a little bit better. You'll notice I used the side of my pencil. One of the questions I got from the John Malkovich sketch that I did was, talk about how you're holding your pencil and how you're using it. Usually I use the side of the pencil like this when I'm trying to be able to cover large areas quickly, and it gives you a broader pencil line. I use the death grip, as I call it, the regular way of holding a pencil, when I'm adding in details or hatching or things like that. So it's just it's what you get used to. And on these sketches, I like to put a little label on them so I know where it is that I sketched. And this is Johnson's Arch, Snow Canyon, Utah. And I think I could do just a little more definition along the outside of that rock outcropping. Coming down the home stretch. And since you made it this far, let's talk about the reward. So as a way of saying thank you for all you subscribers out there, I'm going to be giving this drawing away. All I need to have you do is make a comment. Well, you have to be subscribed and make a comment down in the comment section. And I will get in touch with you whenever I do a random drawing and know who the winner is. And here's the final drawing. I sure do appreciate you sticking with me all the way to the end here. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do it. You'll feel better about yourself. But for now, it's time to turn off the lights, close up the studio, and say as always, I'll see you down the road.